All right, cool. According to YouTube, we are live. But you never know with this stuff. So
No.
today we've got a guitarist out of, well, you're in Belgium, right, Timothy?
Well, I'm from Belgium, but right now I'm in the Netherlands.
Oh, you're in the Netherlands. Okay. Well, a
Yes.
Belgian guitarist in the Netherlands. And is it Pedone or Pedone?
Pedone.
Pedone. All right. So
Yes.
Timothy wrote this excellent new book called, well, it's called um, I'm looking at the title, but it's like Allan Holdsworth, A Method to the Madness. But online, I've seen it as Advanced Harmonic Concepts for Guitar. So
Yes.
it's got two titles technically, but it is a book about Allan Holdsworth and his guitar playing. So Timothy, could you talk a little bit about this book and what led you to write it?
Well, like any guitarist who ever came across Allan Holdsworth, I think we all share the same sentiment of what the is going on here. And for me, that was years ago. I also made some attempts to transcribe something like way back when I was still at the conservatory, with some little success.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then, as the years went on, I think that's 5 or 6 years after that. Obviously, we now have the YouTube channel with all the transcriptions going on. I was thinking, what the hell? Just do another Allan Holdsworth attempt, and it went better. Um, yeah, and that just led to another one and another one and another one, and eventually I got to like 10 or 11 transcriptions. And we also tried to make some analyses of the things that we do. And yeah, over just a span of that many transcriptions, you just start to see patterns and things recurring and the fingering stuff, and you just keep keep fine tuning everything. And then I thought, yeah, I just have to write all of this stuff down and really make like a concept thing out of it, and with some decent harmonic background. And yeah, that's sort of.
Yeah, so Alan's playing and his music are otherworldly, and quite mysterious. And I feel like it's almost like it's a futile effort to try to pursue playing like Alan. Is that something that is that a myth or is it a reality? You know, because the no one should really pursue sounding exactly like another person, but you know, Alan had such a like he just sounded like out of this world, you know, like an alien.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little about the that kind of idea? Like, is it a myth that anyone can play like Alan Holdsworth?
Well, I'm sure some people can.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that's why I also kind of gave it two titles. Like, I don't want it to be like, here's a method to sound exactly like Alan Holdsworth. It's just like, these are the things that come up again and again and again, and I'll just conceptualize it and give you all the harmonic stuff with it, so you can just go nuts on your own. And if you want, you can really devote yourself to sounding like Alan, but that's not really the goal of this book. And I think that's, yeah, for me, it's not very interesting to really pursue that, to really sound like Alan.
Mm.
I much rather have just like the basic, well, basic, just like the ingredients, let's say, and then mix and match and explore and just find my own way using the stuff that I found and that there is. I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
Well, I think it sort of is. And if you're not familiar with Timothy's work, you really should check out the Sharp 11 Music YouTube channel. It's got some amazing transcription videos, and what I love is that you're straight and to the point. There's no 20-minute introduction, which I usually do, and people complain about. If we play one of your videos, you just go straight into the sheet music, and I mean, there's no scroller or anything, but it's pretty obvious what we're looking at. And I'm curious, like, is this as much educational for you and exciting for you, or is this something that you think is content that people are interested in? Because I'm always interested in people's like motivations for doing something.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's kind of preference, I think, as well for me. I don't want to take up 5 minutes and then get to the point. It's like, okay, we're gonna talk about this and we're just gonna start. Maybe it's not the most entertaining, so that's also a consideration. But yeah, it's more of a personal thing, just not too much blah blah blah. Just
Can you actually play the stuff in this book? Because as I was flipping through some of the transcriptions, I was like, holy cow! There's septuplets with six fret stretches, like, and how are you supposed to be thinking like this? It's a very confusing thing to look at, and you actually have some notes in the book. It would be great if you could show a little bit or talk a little bit about, like, don't look at this, but look at that. You know how you say, like, don't look at the notes. Look at the
right.
What should we do when looking through your book?
Okay, so I'll share my screen, which hopefully works.
I'll let you know.
Well.
It's that classic, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? You're still on mute. All right, we can see your screen. So we see the PW analysis.
Okay. Yeah, those are just short for the actual titles for like copyright stuff and all those fun things. Yeah, I tried to make it as clear as possible by using the brackets and the annotations and the little boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really mostly focus on the fingerings, because there's like this devil take the hindmost transcription that's floating on the internet for years.
Yep.
But it only has the notes, which I also went through in my younger years. But that's even, to me, that's even less helpful, because in my opinion, it's really pretty much all about the fingerings, like how he navigates the fretboard, what fingerings he's using. There's just so much. Yeah, like here.
So can you play this stuff? Like, when you're transcribing it, are you like holding the guitar, or are you kind of just making decisions based on what you believe he's doing? Like, how do you go through this whole transcription process?
That's kind of it sort of evolved. In the beginning, I used my guitar a lot more. Nowadays, I don't really.
Uh-huh.
And I prefer to have like live footage, so I can see where his fingers are going.
Okay.
But I do have some studio recordings, and I got to a point where first I got the notes down, and then I went through it and kind of looked for, okay, what's the most, well, obvious is really the wrong term, but what's the what's the most obvious fingering or what's the most practical fingering that he would have used here, and played through it and see, like, okay, this feels kind of weird, or this makes more sense, or if I put this note here, then I can see there's a pattern. He just moves across strings. and it's just really time consuming.
Yeah, so I imagine like what I like about this book is you kind of demystify some of what he's doing. Like, uh, you talk quite a bit, or you demonstrate quite a bit, the horizontal movement on the neck.
Mhm.
And when you're watching Allan and listening, it sounds like he couldn't possibly. It's like he uses a different instrument. He couldn't possibly be using the same thing that I play. You know, the notes he's choosing are just so strange. But when I was looking through this book, I was like, "Holy cow!" It's. And I like how you say like this is a diminished grouping, or this is this kind of scale. Because when I think every guitar player who's ever tried sounding like Allan has watched his ridiculous video where he's talking through his scales. He's like, "This is the X neutral minor 5 chord, scale, whatever." you know, and I call this one the G flat sharp circle scale or whatever, And he's got his little pointer thing, and he's showing these scales, and you're like, well, I can't possibly grasp this.
Yeah.
But yet in your book, it's like, oh, he's kind of doing a lot of shapes, and he's kind of moving them around. So can you talk about some of the discoveries that you made when you're doing these transcriptions, and what people can expect to learn about how he navigated the fretboard?
Yeah, so I think like the REH video where you have like his 10 most used scales, like yeah, okay, there's the Messiaen or the jazz major.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all. That's nice. That's fine.
That's nice.
He uses like, for instance, I don't know my book by heart, so I don't know if I'm gonna come across any relevant shapes like this one here.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. I didn't write it in this one per se, but it does come again in some following examples. Like this could be taken from like a Messiaen mode 3 scale, but it's like 3, 4, 5 notes, and then he's off to something else. So I think that's what I did in the beginning. Like I was trying to apply all that like jazz theory and
Mm-hmm.
trying to relate every note to the chord that it was playing on, and like a chromatic approach, enclosure.
Mm.
No, that doesn't make any sense. So that's what I was saying earlier. Like all those transcriptions, and you just kind of see these patterns, and you just think like, man, he's moving around so much, and he's not playing just one scale for that entire thing. He's moving around, and he's using the diminished shape, and playing one note on this string, one note on that string, and that very position shift thing, like 12th position, 13th position, and then you just see it so many times in his playing that his first finger is like just going,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this barrage of notes that follow. But it's just a typical thing. Like he really moves in this horizontal way, and all these shapes just shift underneath, and what follows is, yeah, you could approach it in like a sort of fragmentary way. Like, okay, now I'm gonna use a diminished shape, and then I'm shifting one position. I'm gonna use a, I don't know, pentatonic shape, and now I'm gonna shift one over again, and I'm gonna use this shape. So of course I don't know if that's gonna sound any good or anything like Allan necessarily, but those are sort of the things that you see.
So if you were to employ some of Allan's improvisational techniques, um, would you be thinking in terms of theory or shapes, or like, how have you, as someone who's gone deeper dive into all of this, how would you kind of describe a methodology for approaching, like, playing a solo on one of these songs in the style of Allan Holdsworth?
um hmm. Well, I wouldn't really dive straight into improvising with that stuff, I would, well, I would pretty much follow the steps that I lay out in the book. Like really, just start with one chord or a chord progression, and
Mm-hmm.
then see from which scales you or which scales you could combine or borrow from and use notes from and use stuff to move in and out of the harmony or use some of the techniques to change positions and really approach it in this gradual approach. Don't try to put all of that stuff in there at once because it's a lot.
Mm.
Um, and but yeah, that's my personal approach. I like to sort of think about how do I want it to sound like? What is the effect that I'm going for? Do I want to start inside, very melodic, and then go outside? When I go outside, do I want to have it to be like this septuplet crazy thing, or just 16th notes, triplets, and not really too crazy, just color it a little bit with some weird notes, and then shape it in some way overall, the entire solo. But that's my personal approach to those things.
Does he do much vertical movement? I know there's a lot of emphasis on the horizontal, and I've not actually tried playing a lot of his stuff. A lot of the Bruford stuff and UK, his more like 70s prog era, I've definitely spent a lot of time with, but I feel like he didn't play like this back then. And what you've transcribed in this book is kind of the evolution that I believe started in the 80s. And really just evolved through the 90s and early 2000s. But he never really, as far as I could tell, when you're starting out, you kind of learn these scales. Like the major scale is, 1-3-5, 1-3-5, 2-3-5, that kind of thing. Like that's how a lot of amateur guitarists just get started. But Allan doesn't really play vertically a whole lot, and so I was curious, like, where do you, I don't know, maybe how would you teach yourself differently, in light of what you've learned here, and what have you learned in terms of the horizontal movement up the neck versus the vertical?
Well, yeah, they give very different outcomes. Vertical playing versus horizontal playing. Like vertical playing, to me, that's really like Frank Ambale,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really vertical and all the sweep stuff, and that really gives a certain sound. And then the horizontal stuff, that you end up more in the Holdsworth camp. And like, for instance, Joe Satriani is also very horizontal in a
Mm-hmm.
very different way, but it's also very horizontal. Yeah, there is some horizontal playing, but it's like more like 3 note per string stuff, or a lot of string skipping.
Right.
Playing, let's see if I can find an example. Not really. But like taking one particular shape, like for instance the diminished shape, and then playing it on the 5th, 3rd, and 1st string,
Uh-huh.
for instance. So that's sort of the verticality.
Mm.
Sometimes there's a blues-ish line, or
Right.
pentatonic. Um,
He also primarily seems to play on the first 4 strings.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, I know in jazz guitar, when you're playing in a jazz ensemble, a good jazz guitarist is allowing the bassist to explore basically where a typical guitarist might be playing on the 5th and 6th strings, the low A and E. And then typically the jazz guitarist is filling in some chordal stuff on the first 4 strings. And it seems like Allan he employs a lot of that in his later playing. I was curious if you had any thoughts on that.
I actually have not thought about that,
Hmm.
but it's true. Um, yeah, those lower sometimes he dips into the fifth string and the fourth fret or something. But I think I saw that once
Yeah.
in like the Zarabeth solo or something.
It's pretty wild. Like, if he's going to play on the sixth string, it's usually when he's playing at the 17th fret. Or, like, it's only because he wants to get that higher note and be able to. Usually he's like using it as a leaping point, and he'll do very, there's this great footage of him playing that I shared just recently. And his soloing, I can't remember the guys' names in the band, like an idiot right now, but I know a DVD came out of it. It was like a 1980s performance. Anyway, and he's soloing, and you can see his left hand is primarily stretching across 6 or 7 frets past the 12th fret at all times. And if he's ever playing on the low strings, it's to basically do some sort of really large intervallic leap. He'll do something on the first string, and then on the sixth string, and then on the third string or the fourth string, and then he'll go up to the first and second strings and do just but then he's like living there, and he has such a span of his fingers that he can do anything he needs to do, just playing sort of vertically. But he's, you're the expert. Tell us what you've noticed in when he's soloing beyond the 12th fret.
Well, pretty much what you said. Like, he has that multiple note per string thing. Really, yeah, he could do with it whatever he wanted in terms of technique. Like, there's I went through some of the live footage, like from 1992, 1993, and it's just like, he doesn't care. He's just ripping through everything. Just
he's completely on his own. He's in his own moment, his own world. Yeah,
he can. You can really see he can do whatever he wants. He has no limits,
right?
Seemingly, and it's all really that 3 note per string, 4 note per string stretch stuff.
Yeah,
that he was so ridiculously good at. And I think it also has a lot to do with the guitar, because I have a Strandberg, the headless thing, and it's much more angled, and that works so much better than my the Sur or any other kind of standard guitar. That is it's just such a pain to play these things, and then with the Strandberg, it's just so much easier.
What scale length did he use? I'd heard it was primarily 25 and a half, I think, or 23 and a half.
I have no idea. I'm really bad with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the video I'm talking about is Allan Holdsworth with Gary Novak and Dave Carpenter live in Warsaw, Poland in 1998. And it's just an unbelievable video. I would play it right now, but you wouldn't be able to see or hear it. So there's no real good point in that. But yeah, he's just like, if you watch him soloing, it's just kind of like, this guy, he doesn't think about the guitar the way that other players think. I've done a lot of transcription of Vai, Satriani, Tommy Emmanuel, a lot of these different guitarists that are fairly popular, and then some unpopular stuff. But when you get to Holdsworth, it's like you might as well be transcribing, like Fred Frith's prepared guitar solos or something like that. It's just not like other players. So I was curious, like, how has this transcription exercise effort like changed your view of other players?
Well, it didn't diminish anyone else. If that's, I don't know if that's what you mean.
No, not at all. Everyone has their own style, and I think that's great.
Yeah. But it does set like a certain bar But it's just it's nice not to transcribe Allan for a change because it's such a load off.
Yeah. What's also funny to me is that what we can talk about for 10 minutes, Allan, it's like a fleeting thought, you know?
Yeah.
For him, it's just, this is something I did. I don't remember it. I will never listen to it again. I'll probably never play it again on purpose. Although I do know that there are certain scalar fragments that he'll reuse. So it's another thing that just came to mind. Like, do you, a lot of, I feel like this might be an unfair characterization, but a lot of guitarists will use shapes, you know, like pentatonic type shapes to move around the neck. Does Allan do this kind of something similar, just with different shapes? Does he like connect these? Does he go from one scale to another using these sort of shape or reusable blocks? In your, you know, as far as you've noticed.
I would say so. Yeah, there's a lot of recurring patterns that you just recognize, and he had his way of changing positions. Of There's some patterns that you just after a while you know, like, okay, he's playing this, so probably this is gonna come after it. So he really had his own patterns. That's I don't think that's something anyone really doesn't have. If you're improvising or playing something, you're very rarely you're gonna play something you've never played before, like a certain fingering or whatever.
Well, I think the problem with the way Allan is talked about, or maybe mythologized a bit, is he doesn't do that. But I think he does it without people recognizing that he does it, because our Western ears are so tuned to certain colloquialisms on the guitar, you know, like, oh, that's you know, like everyone knows what that is. But then if you listen to Allan, you're like, I don't hear a melody. I don't even know what is happening. And it's these guys all like sort of doing stuff that doesn't make any sense to me. And then there's the guys who are like totally into it, and I sometimes wonder, do you even understand what's happening, or are you here for like thrills? You know? But you know, when I as I have started trying to play some of his stuff, it has become apparent to me that he does think in blocks like anybody else. They're just his own blocks, which raises a great point of an interview I did with Matthias Eklund a few years ago. He said, grow your own mustache. He says, don't play like anybody else. He would, if he heard himself play something that sounded like someone else, he just threw it out. Like that was removed from his vocabulary. And he said he would record himself and only keep the bits that where he really felt like it was distinctly his. And if you listen to Matthias play, he's another unworldly player. It's just he doesn't get that sort of fanaticism of Allan Holdsworth.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So is this book available now, and how can people purchase it?
It is very available now.
Extremely available right now.
The easiest way is to go to sharp11music.com and then visit the store, and it's right there.
Yep. Now, what else do you have to offer on there? Because I know this is not your only product.
We have some smaller bits and packs on there. I have my own fretboard course. There's also a rhythm course where I go over all the polyrhythmic stuff and building all of that from scratch, and quintuplets and all that fun stuff. And the fretboard system is really my own concoction from all the years of frustration and just having a feeling of all the systems and explanations were just incomplete, and everything was like fragmented and not clear in any way. So
And Sharp 11 Music is a growing outlet for you and your business partner. Can you share a little about that?
yeah, so we started on YouTube with posting transcriptions, and with time we introduced more like lick of the week things and analyses and more study packs, and now we're almost done with the Sharp 11 Music site, which is supposed to be a membership site where you have access to all of the courses, and you could also send in videos of your playing or transcriptions, and we would get feedback on that. So we're really trying to build it as a very comprehensive place to be if you want to study music.
And you have a Patreon?
Yes. Also, that we have we have so many different side ways that I forget half of it.
This is me trying to remind you of how to get people to support you.
we are very bad at that stuff. We just put it out there, and then it's like, oh yeah, we have a book, or we have you can watch that page if you like.
Yeah.
So yeah, Patreon. It's still called Sharp 11 Transcriptions, which was our original name before it became Sharp 11 Music. That's you can also find all that stuff through the YouTube channel, which is Sharp 11 Music. Is there anything else we have?
I don't know. I'm not your marketing director, but you do have Introvert. Can you talk a little about your project there?
Yes, that's pretty much separated from all the Sharp 11 stuff. That's my own personal project where I write what I want. Which it has been a little bit silent the past couple of, I would say years. But I wrote like, I think 5 years ago, a little symphony, or however you want to call it, which was a personal challenge where I would write and record a track and a video every 2 weeks. So every Sunday, every 2 weeks, I would have a new song ready, and it was supposed to be, and it is part of one larger whole, which spanned an entire year. So it's divided up into 4 movements, if you want to call it that, all separate songs that connect together, and it's a whole concept thing.
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Yeah, check out his Introvert releases on YouTube. They are awesome. They're long too. Like some of these pieces are half hour, and he is a great guitar player and very interesting ideas, from tapping, multi-finger tapping to Holdsworthian type soloing to whatever else that comes out of his brain. Really interesting music that I think people on this channel will enjoy. And you can get a copy of the book at sharp11music.com. Could you also, just to be completely thorough, what does Sharp 11 mean? It doesn't mean pointy numbers, right?
It's also not a hashtag either.
That's right. That's right.
Sharp 11 is a theoretical concept where you, if you have the scale degrees, like C major, for instance, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, you could number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. But if you were to make chords out of them, then you would skip every other note. So you have C, E, G, B, 1, 3, 5, 7. If you keep going, you have the D, 9, then you have F, the 11. But the 11 sounds a bit not spicy enough, so you can make it sharp. So you, how do you say it? You sharp it. It's one half step higher.
Yeah.
And then you have the interval of a tritone, and then you have a sharp 11.
Cool. Anyone who's looking at a Holdsworth book should know what a sharp 11 is, but sometimes we have people who don't play guitar, they don't really know anything about music, and it's just good to hear how people come up with this stuff.
Well, that's all my business partner's idea and name, and he really likes sharp 11. So everything is sharp 11 with him.
Cool. All right. Well, Timothy, thank you so much for talking through this book and for showing some of it off. And you've got a lot of great insights in this book. I plan on having a more Holdsworth like event where it'll be you and a couple of other guys like Allan Marcus. I always get his name switched to two first names. Allan Marcus, you, Timothy, a guy named John Vulo, who's done some really great Holdsworth videos, and maybe one or two other guys to just talk more about Allan and his playing. But also I thought it would be fun if we could do sort of a chord competition, because I don't know if you watched John's video, but the top 10 hardest Holdsworth chords. I thought we could all just try doing that and see who fails the most. It'll be me. Just that's my prediction. But I've actually worked on a couple of them, and it's like, holy cow. He's playing fifths across 4 strings, and then he moves his index finger down 1 whole fret, barring. It's like, what on earth is wrong with this guy? But so expect some sort of Holdsworth event if you're watching this. And we'll probably have another video specifically with John. John wrote his own Holdsworth book as well. So we'll have to get you and John connected as well. Outside of the Holdsworth stuff, we do have upcoming events. And if you go to makeweirdmusic.com, you can check out the upcoming events section, which is not too far down the page. We have merchandise, t-shirts and all that jazz. Hats. The hats are pretty cool. And then through YouTube, we now have merchandise below the video description, so you should be able to click and buy. And beyond that, the Failure to Fracture book. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to the printer to check out the upgraded edition for all pre-orders. So anyone who purchased Failure to Fracture will get an upgraded version of the book. It's beautiful, upgraded paper and all this stuff. You can watch the recent video I just put out. And otherwise, Timothy, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your work, for all of your transcription work. Sharp 11 Music is an awesome channel. It's kind of a no-nonsense channel. If you're really into music, transcriptions of crazy solos. I mean, they've got sax solos on there where they're both playing guitar and sax at the same time. It's like, holy moly, I can't believe the way these guys, are thinking. And then you think, Sharp 11 Music transcribed it and then learned to perform it. So these guys are the real deal. Go check out their stuff. Send them some money. Buy the book. Go on their, Patreon. Support them. Yada, yada, yada. Everyone, thanks so much for showing up on the stream. Thanks again, Timothy.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, cool. Well, we will see you guys in the next one.